Thank you for the reminder.
No problem.
It is September 3rd. This is the DFM-DC Steering Committee meeting. We have, by virtue of roll call, John Greaves, Michael Darden, Linda Getz, Jeff Hurley, and Denise McCurdy. Welcome, everyone.
Happy to be here.
Thanks. Thrilled to be here. Excited for today.
And it's not Friday.
Yeah,
It's
no
not
kidding.
Friday.
Getting ready for a good long weekend.
Yes, we are, in fact. Yes, we are. So guys, I'm just going to go ahead and get on with it. You understand the structure of the steering committee meetings. We'll take a quick pause at the antitrust policy. I think everyone is familiar with that. Always will take a run through that.
Yeah, I think part of that is supposed to be the fact that somebody's supposed to read that aloud at the beginning of every meeting when it's not the same people that are in every meeting. We should probably become pretty familiar with it. I mean, Jeff, you're going to be responsible for this on other working group sessions and meetings.
Right.
You know, I don't think it's a long read. Why don't we make a point of just adding from this point forward the fact that we actually do read it and have it so that it's identified as part of this. I've seen us before go through it and just kind of pass it, but I've also heard several attorneys communicate the fact that it's supposed to be read at the beginning of every meeting. And I think it would be a useful process. It's only two sentences. So
I agree, and let's start with this one then. So let's remember the antitrust policy, which is neither DFM Data Core, hereafter referred to as DFM-DC, nor its committees, which you'll find in Article 5.1, and activities shall be used for the purpose of bringing about and/or attempting to bring about any understanding or agreement, written or oral, formal or informal, express or implied, between and among competitors with regard to prices, terms, and/or conditions of sale, credit terms, or marketing practices.
perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for the reminder. And we will do that moving forward as well.
No, I think it's important. It sets the tone for the meeting. It's what we're here to be able to do. We're here for serving the greater good, and we're not here to be able to collude. So
I agree.
I have a quick question on that regarding the marketing practices. I know one of the talking points was marketing the DFM quote marketplace to the greater freight marketplace. Is there any issues with that?
I think the way that it's come down, Linda, is the fact that we've identified from an antitrust perspective that our options are to either have a closed system that has very clearly defined set of rules for participation and involvement, or an open system that has ability for others to be able to participate. And because of the fact that we've identified the classes of users, there's we have good definition on what those users can be, but our foresight is not 20/20 on everything that can happen. So it's reasonable for us to be able to have an offering for those companies that are supporting the digital freight matching companies and the industry that is emerging around them, and having them available to sign up as contributing members that have not been invited would create that opportunity for inclusion by all that gives us the opportunity to be able to market to the industry without threat of the antitrust, as I understand the rules.
Okay.
Does that sound accurate to you, Denise?
It does. We could certainly run it across Keith one last time, who will, by the way, be joining us at 2 p.m.
Yep.
He's our IP attorney.
Yeah, and the point of having him come then was so that we could have our own working session and note anything that we want to be able to address with him and finish this stuff. And we had a customer at 3 o'clock today who we met with on Tuesday that asked for documents.
No pressure.
No pressure. Just they're ready to see this. They're aware of the fact that we've been working on this. They were part of the first governance meetings, and they're wanting to be able to see what documents look like. So we're happy to oblige.
Yeah, and let's start with that, because we have a customer who wants to sign these documents. It's in a fabulous space to be in.
Okay.
Bravo.
I like customers.
Yes, we all do. John's not saying anything. I'm just waiting for him to go off mute because I know he won't disappoint because he never does.
I don't like customers. The world would be better off without them. They're nothing but a pain. They pay too little and expect too much.
You don't disappoint.
That used to be on the wall of my office in Rotterdam when I had an office in Rotterdam in the Netherlands. It started with the trouble with the Dutch in commerce. They pay too little and expect too much.
Yeah, that's a common problem in this world, I think.
Oh, yes.
Well, we're going to under-promise and over-deliver, right?
I like that.
That's
Let's
right.
do that.
The good old American way, right?
Yep.
Okay, guys. Our agenda for today, call to order. We did the roll call. I do need approval of the agenda is as follows. You can see that. So,
Motion to approve.
second.
Seconded.
Okay, that was Jeff and Linda. And then
Greaves came in too. I mean, you give him the nod whenever. I can be the tertiary.
Ladies first.
He will have his opportunity. Meeting minutes, they were somewhat brief. They were distributed actually last Friday. I assume everyone has read those. So I need a motion to approve the minutes.
Motion to
Have you
approve.
read those, Linda?
I was actually thinking back. I believe I have, but I'm questioning myself. So,
Denise, do you have a copy handy that you could just pull up real quickly for a quick review to see if it freshes the recollection of?
Excuse me. I have read them. I approve them. If there's someone else approves them, the right of anyone else to read them is moot. Because that's a quorum.
I will be sure that I review them, but I have a backlog memory of having seen them, so I'm just not calling all the details.
As Denise will tell you, compared to an insights meeting, this is a doozy.
Yeah. Well done too, by the way, John. So I heard a motion by Jeff to approve. Do I have a second?
Yeah, John already has.
I did that. I said I approved them.
Okay, Jeff and John. All right, excellent. So guys, the agenda today, we are going to go straight into that. We have a discussion about the member classes, and then the working group. Really also, we need to have then the bulk of our time with the document review, because this is the documents we need to have in order for our customer meeting at 3. So just wanted to do a very quick, brief run around of what we've accomplished to date, which is not insignificant in short order, but we've done a tremendous amount of work and could not have done it without this team. So sincere thanks to everyone, not just in the governance space, but also in the other administrative space in marketing and sales and operations. We may share this with the customer as well.
When are they publishing the inland logistics article?
I think it's
At the end of this month, John. It'll be between the 24th and between the 22nd and the 26th, I think, is the window that they gave us. Their target used to be the 15th, but because of Corona, they've fallen off of being able to hit that deadline and haven't recovered yet. It was the story that was told to me.
Are there going to be any issues getting it out by the 22nd for the Paris Blockchain Week link?
We have a copy of it.
Okay.
We have editorial rights on it, so we have a final copy of what it is.
Perfect.
May I have sight of that?
Excuse me, John, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
May I have sight of that?
Yes, sir, as soon as I have sight of it.
We saw the preview today, right?
There's three revisions that apparently have been done, and the first revision of it came out today. I have listened to it on a recording prior to jumping on a meeting with Jeff and then jumping on a meeting with Denise. I haven't had any conversation with David or anybody else about its content so far. Did John get a copy of the draft? I mean, I don't know who David sent that to.
No, I did not.
I did get a copy and sent back just one brief revision.
I don't have an issue if you have it handy to be able to share with John.
Okay, I can pull it up in my email and forward it to him.
It's on its way. I'll send it right now, John.
Thanks, Denise.
No worries.
Dank wel.
I had it fairly handy, so. Okay. Done.
Great quotes, by the way, everybody.
Yeah, I did read it, and I thought it hung together very nicely.
Yeah, it's a very strong story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. And John, you're like the first quote in here, in fact.
Yeah, you're a superstar, John.
Yeah.
You get first and last billing, I think.
Yeah.
I got last billing.
Oh, you got last billing?
Yeah, got to be honest.
Oh, is it? I bet they opened it with, according to John Greaves, Michael Darden knows diddly squat about freight digitization, but he's
Something
done a
like
great
that.
job of smoking out some investors. I think he captured that.
You nailed it there, John.
I thought so.
Okay. So proposed member classes. We had previously, when I say previously, I mean last Friday, voted and agreed on the member classes. We have sort of finessed this a bit. So we did discuss it, but we didn't actually call out a separate invited, which is invited versus C. So this is a change that we need to discuss and vote on. Again, that philosophically, we haven't changed the direction, but we've just spelled it out because we just think it's clear that we say you're either a C, which means you just come on board and you can join, and here's what you see, and here's what you have to do, versus you are John Greaves and you are invited member, and you do actually have a sort of a different pathway into DFM-DC. And we do have to have
Actually, just to be clear, the first pathway does not go into the same system for DFM-DC. It goes into a directory listing that enables them to work with the system, but they do not go into the same portal as our DFM members do at this point, and by design. If they're invited, then they will get an invitation to be able to log into that same system.
That is correct. That's why this is new system. And just as a reminder, the reason why we are inviting DFM-DC, well, let's just say opening up DFM-DC at all, is on the advice of Keith.
So I'm sorry, just not to correct you, Denise, but not DFM-DC, but the reason why we're creating the contributing member that can log in on their own. It's not a DFM. These are non-DFM companies, but they are neighbors to DFMs. They're tracking companies, they're visibility platforms, they're API integration companies. There are other companies that are next door to the space, but they don't do digital matching. Does that make sense?
Is there going to be an opportunity for people that are DFMs to participate in that space as well? Or we're going to assume that they don't want to or shouldn't be? It seems
Denise,
like that portal is anybody can self register, correct?
So they can, and when they do, they don't go live right away. There is a check over their profile to be able to say, yes, it is applicable to the market and that they're not selling mousetraps. And if they're selling mousetraps, what is their expected, facilitation and connection to the digital freight matching industry that they would be disqualified, unless they were providing mousetraps to the truck drivers to keep mouse out of their trucks while they were on the road. And I don't think they'd be very successful there, and it wouldn't be something that we'd be selling through the channel of a DFM, so we wouldn't make that public listing. But if somebody like Four Kites came in and listed themselves as being a contributing member, then our approval of listing them as a contributing member would also come with the, hey, these guys are doing things related to tracking and visibility, and we'd really like to have them be part of the working groups on things that are related to tracking and visibility and operations and technology. So we can invite them at that point to become a contributing member that is invited, And with that invitation, we can specify the working groups that they're allowed to participate in.
Okay. No, that makes sense. So it's kind of them raising their hand and saying, "Hey, look at us."
Yep.
You know,
we're
we'd like
here.
to-
It's almost like an application, but not quite like an application. I mean, it's them saying, this is who we are. And if you like us and think that we apply, then you can just say yes to us and leave us in that status, or you can take it the next step and invite them to be able to participate in working groups of things where there's issues.
Is there going to be a box that they can click or something that indicates that they would be interested in more in-depth engagement?
So I think that's a good question, and certainly something that should be considered in that user experience. Right now, the most recent decision on this, and you know, again, we are a steering committee led company, so we haven't and won't develop these pieces until we have clarity on the fact that this is what we're doing. But this is the discussion that I've been having with the developer community, or our developers, is the fact that creating this type of user, they really shouldn't be a member of our DFM member database. So
Right.
we're building a new server that will be fed from the same public domain website to be able to be this filtering for these unknown companies to potentially become known and invited.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great distinguishing and opening the door of opportunity, but making sure that it's guarded appropriately. So
Yep. And the fact that Keith brought this up at the very beginning, and you know, it wasn't on our roadmap to do this, but in considering it, it really makes a lot of sense. It's a feature. It's beneficial for the industry to be able to have a place where, you know, companies that are servicing these providers can come in and say, we do this.
yeah.
And some of these companies are adding new features as well, new products and services that may, you know, bridge them over into a member class, you know, DFM.
Okay.
So the one other thing I wanted to point out on this same exact form is that we changed the order. And I don't know if Denise, do you still have the old one up in the archive pieces of this deck?
Yeah, I do, actually.
Yeah, just show everybody real quickly so they can see what it did look like, and can see that we reordered things. This is what we agreed to in our last steering committee meeting, where you can see that we have the contributing member and the N class member, but they're over on the right-hand side of the chart. And it's just not chronological left to right of what they would likely do first. So we repositioned the columns here to facilitate the fact that the second equity member class is now grayed out on the right-hand side, because that isn't available yet and won't be available until the second to last column is fully subscribed with the 40. But the very simplest place for somebody to come to is that non-invited contributing member, first column, then the second column where they're invited, then the third column is where they've, you know, been a DFM, and a DFM that then elects to be able to participate in the equity raise.
That's a nice logical flow.
Yeah, it was a good change, I think, and it was just wanting that I'm not going to change those things by myself. I'm going to bring them back to the steering committee, and the steering committee can see it and realize why we did it. And the work that you guys did last time of agreeing to what we come up with was really right. It was just that now that we've really started to think through how the contributing member would play, this is more logical for the go-to-market strategy, I believe.
And there's another refinement to this, and that is they're all coming in as N class members, and there's a $50,000 one-time payment. And at that point, if they so choose, they can then become an EA. So they're not coming in as an EA, they're coming in as an N, and they can convert to an EA. That requires an additional $100,000 one-time payment. So this is in red because we didn't spell that out. We didn't have that thinking before. We thought they'd come in either as an N or an EA, but we said, no, actually they're all going to be coming as an N first, and then potentially as EA. And after,
again, this has changed the design in how we were doing the system, because when somebody does the N approach of being able to say and qualify and sign a member agreement, we then can pose them with the question of, are you interested in being an investor in the company? And if they say yes, then we can prepare and present the accredited investor documentation that they would need to be filled in with, but we would have a timestamp of them saying that they were interested in being an equity investor and that that spot is held for them until such time as that paperwork is completed, or that they haven't completed it in a timely manner where the spot would be available for someone else.
Gotcha. And their application for that is going to be time stamped, so there won't be any question marks.
That's correct. That's the whole reason for putting that step in after step N of asking that, because that's the capture point, is right then. Is this something you want to do? Or if they come back to it later point, it's still an outstanding issue for them that they could join that equity participation role at some point, but they might not get to the first 40 because they may already be spoken for. So if they don't claim that they're interested in being able to participate in the equity piece and those documents are not displayed for them, then they won't get their timestamp starting of the expression of interest in being one of the first 40. First 40 that get equity.
No, that's a clean way to address it, so there aren't any question marks in the future of, you know, why didn't I get in that first 40 batch? So
yeah.
Yep. This has been a good negotiating, you know, effort by the whole team to be able to really get to this. This makes a lot of sense to me. I think we're really there.
I motion to approve this proposed member classes lineup. I think it's fantastic.
I second.
Okay. Any opposition?
I do have one detailed question, Denise, and that is, it looks as if we have another agreement, the Accredited Investor Agreement. Is that something that Keith is drawing up as well?
Yeah, we're
So it's
going
It's a great question, and we can get to it now, Denise, if you don't mind stepping ahead for one item on the list. There is a cost that's associated with being able to prepare these documents that were not part of what the initial expectation was. We didn't have on here an accredited investor package that we were needing to be able to create. However, there's a series of documents. I've done this once or twice before with another company, and it's not just one thing, and to get it done right, like we've done everything else, I did communicate with the same law firm that has been putting together these documents and share with them after they did an opinion piece on whether we needed to do a notification to all of them. Their opinion was that the best approach would be to proactively send a notification to each of the digital freight matching companies with a certified return receipt letter that identifies to them that there is an opportunity for an investment in the company, and that we would look to be able to send that out to arrive at around the same time as the article releases, and that all of our documents are in place and ready to be able to bring folks in, so that there isn't an unfair advantage for anybody that we were aware of in the marketplace. But at the same token, we do have to get those documents prepared so that those that do say that they want to do that are presented with those documents in a manner that allows them to be able to complete them. So there's an expense of about $1,300 to prepare those documents as part of the next step package of being able to take on these investors. In addition to that, the subscription agreement, which is the one that would be done after they certified that they were accredited investors, they would be presented with both the completion of the accredited investor documents and then the subscription agreement to be able to be entered into. So there's an expense to it. It's probably going to take another week or 10 days to be able to get that, but I don't think that it won't preclude us from moving forward with the customer that we have a meeting with at 3 o'clock today, or other customers that would express their interest in potentially being an investor as well.
And this will look familiar to everyone because this is the document package. And this is what I sent earlier. So it's these documents here. If it's in green, it means that we've signed off on it. Okay, so we are making good progress. Let me go back to the agenda real quickly. All right, that was the updated member classes. All right, the next thing on the agenda is a working group establishment in alignment with the command center. And we were having this discussion because we were starting to have, we wanted to tee up the marketing and sales working group, so the next one. But then we said, all right, so there's a question. Do we set these things up for the short term, or do we need to set them up for the longer term, which means we have one working group per module? And the way it's built right now in the system is that there's a marketing module, sales module. There's actually not a utilization module. It's operations and IT. We put them together into one for now, utilization. So we really wanted to tee this up and have the conversation with the steering committee. And that is, does it make sense to go ahead and stand these up, combine them, and then just have to break them apart later, which is later is kind of to be determined? Or is it cleaner just to set up working groups and have them match the system, the command center?
And just from a systemic user perspective standpoint, when there is a user, for instance, John Greaves, that is participating, the functional steps that take place within the system is system admin send a communication to John with a set of roles and permissions to participate in the steering committee and in prescribed working groups. And when he logs in, those are the only things that he can see are the working groups that have been allocated to his profile. If a user from a regular digital freight matching company who first signed up and was in the governance person set up another person who was their operations person, and that operations person went into their ideas portal and said there should be a great idea to have this new report that produced this and this and this, that idea from operations would be an idea that's tied to the module of operations. And the ideas generated from operations will be addressed by an operations working group who will filter those ideas into common issues. And those common issues will be what is negotiated and worked on in the working groups to be brought up to the steering committee. And we really have it, what I think is very, very streamlined, of an idea coming from anywhere where it can be made part of another issue or connected to another idea. And when the two ideas come together and become an issue, then the history of that is captured and stored, and the comments from other people that have impact in the working group have an opportunity to be able to comment for a 10-day period of time on what the working group issues are. And then the working group administrator is who's assembling that issue into a submission that the steering committee would have access to for 10 days. And they would get 3 notifications of the fact that there's an issue for them to review and place their vote on.
Right. So the question I have, Michael, everybody, is what exactly is the role of this working group? Where do they fit in? I've got a company structure. I've got people what run departments and what are responsible for departmental and corporate budgets. And I've got a president and a CEO and a COO and a CFO and a ABC and a BBC. And I've got my board of directors, and they have certain executive powers granted to them, and they execute on those as deemed necessary to resolve issues arising from the operating of the company.
Yes.
Then what is this working group?
So this is related to system operations more than anything else. It's related to, and this again came from Keith, the antitrust attorney, that basically said, if you take in the feature requests from the users and they're voted on by the working groups and brought up to the steering committee, then the functionality of the system itself has been designed by the users that are of the system, and in this case, our potential shareholders also. And it eliminates all of our antitrust concerns, because we didn't produce a system that we said you have to participate with. We created a framework for their features to be bubbled up into the development efforts for the connectivity of their specific module to the interaction between the parties.
you know, I hate arguing with a lawyer, and I much prefer the Shakespearean approach, which of course is to kill them first. But I must disagree strongly. I understand the business model of DFM differs from other businesses. It is part of an emerging era of digital transformation, as the EU love to spin the words. It's also transformation of freight. But at the end of the day, it's Uber Daten. It's Netflix Daten. It's whatever era you wish to quote of change and transformation of a business. As such, when clients approach companies and ask for features, and at the end of the day, the clients of DFMDC are, or
DFMs,
right? They're self-fulfilling. So what if you got some collection of people got together and said, we want it to do X, and it's actual spurious nonsense. You know, it's something that if it was a management, you know, that if it had come through the department. So for instance, let's say the CTO turns around and says, actually, what I'm going to do arbitrarily is I am going to extend the runtime response time because it'll save us server capacity in the medium term and reduce our server rental costs in the cloud by $1.3 million a month. That is a business discussion. Now, if management or the board said, we have a list here of client requests for system refinements, upgrades, or add-ons, then the management and the board appoint well, they don't, you see, because we've got a steering group, right? Steering committee. So the steering committee would create an ad hoc working group to evaluate this quarter's requests. And they would add the dollar cost of doing it. So it'd be like, hey, Mike, what do you think? You know, 120 programming days? Yeah, that'd be about right. That's 120 grand. And what about this and what about that? And then it comes back as a simple expanded model that says, of the 11 requests made in this quarter, ended 30th of March, and now being presented back to you on the 30th of April from the ad hoc, we have rated the following according to, can it be done? So the first 7, they can't even be done. So we're left with 4. Those 4 we've rated as follows: by dollar cost, by revenue expectation improvements, and by ongoing maintenance support cost.
So, John, this is the reason why you're on the steering committee, because those are the factors of what a steering committee would look at to be able to make the determination. And the steering committee can basically throw something away and say, look, we can't deal with this right now because it's just not in the immediate timeline. But the working group also has the ability to be able to recognize that the ideas that have floated up from any one of the participating companies, that they're already represented somewhere. But in order for them to do that, I wanted to create a bucket that any operational issue that comes up is going to come in from operational people, and there are going to be operational issues that can be compared to other operational, you know, ideas. And then
so you want to turn this into the sort of company that at one time I worked for, a long time ago, but I've been through other instances that's just not as graphic and related as it is to this. I worked for a transportation company called Williams Freight Group, and their headquarters were in Belfast, Northern Ireland, and they were in Manchester, London, Dublin, and their speciality was basically pick it up today, deliver it tomorrow, in the days when picking up today meant it probably vanished for 4 to 8 weeks. They were a hot freight carrier. Their speciality, in fact, was loading air freight at Manchester Airport up until 8 o'clock at night, and then going hell for leather to Heathrow, pretending it was on a plane from Manchester. It wasn't, it was in a road trailer, because there were no planes from Manchester to London, and any idiot should have known that. But it simulated air freight, because when it got to London, it was put onto the freighter that was going to Doha or Bangladesh or Tokyo, which was leaving London early in the morning, and therefore met everybody's expectations as if it jetted its way through the night, so on and so forth. Now, the problem was, and here's the relevancy of my remark, I just want to give you context. The problem was that here's a typical discussion in the depot at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Who the hell decided we could pick up from Chadwick Mills at 4 o'clock in the afternoon and put it in a skillen at 7 a.m.? There isn't even a ferry at Alarn. Oh, well, we've signed the deal. Oh, hell. Bloody salespersons gathering in coffee room. What the hell's up with operations? You bring them in a bloody good job from Chadwick Mills, and now they're going, they can't do it. It fits well within the time frame we've been quoting and that marketing agreed to, and put out the brochures and the mailers and everything. And so it went on. I rest my case.
So I hear every word that you're saying, sir, and I think this is a little bit of a unique business model from the standpoint of the fact that the very first thing that we're offering to this group of companies is a simplified solution to eliminate phantom capacity and phantom loads. And that's the very first thing that they can do. And we can write a roadmap and bring them to the table to get that initial feature. But all of the other features that are available from the other 86 steps that are involved in a transaction that we're not collecting the detail on at the moment are the things that I'm expecting those companies to go, it was safe for us to transfer these 6 steps, and we got this clean data of the phantom information. If we shared our pickup times and scheduled pickup times, then we would be able to have this metric. And we should include those data points as part of what we collect through this utility. And those are the sort of ideas that we're expecting, is that there's roughly 100 steps that are involved in a transportation transaction that is moving from demand to delivery. And if we focused on 6 of them right out of the gate, we can give everybody a little bit of a benefit, not even a little bit, a lot of a benefit with sharing a little bit of data that they're accustomed to sharing already. The other fields, the ones that are a little further down the line that have the deeper meaning of value for, are going to require many of these systems to develop what those touch points are in the transaction. They've automated 12 of the steps, and they can hit us with the 6 that we already have, but they don't have the next 3 that everybody else is looking for. And I think that's where the idea of having it so that these companies could express their desires of how else to be able to optimize. And the main reason for that is because every one of them have already tried to optimize inside of their own silo. They've put a lot of thought into this, and extracting those ideas and how they'd be willing to be able to work with the others is what's going to, I think, create the super conversation in the working groups to be able to bring to the steering committee, as we've already decided that we can do this. We're the participants and we know what the roadmap is. We're just looking for your approval to do it. So we can make this so everybody else can do it too. That's kind of the thought, is that it's a long play. The short solution is that we can help them with the phantom loads and phantom capacity, and we're bringing that with us to the market. But that everything else on top of it, they're going to ask for. And when they ask for it, we don't have to say this was our idea and we're telling you to go do it. It was a participating DFM member with 3 other participating DFM members that were working in a working group, and they grew this idea that was brought to the steering committee, and the steering committee thought it was a super idea and went through the 3-step evaluation that you're referring to.
What if that creates new IP? How is that going to be managed?
So the beauty part of these companies is the fact that they're equity holders inside of DFM Data Corp. So there's an element of their participation in the equity of the fact that things that are being created under this that are not specifically listed in their license agreement are new IP that's created under DFM Data Corp.
And that's part of what they're signing off on coming on board.
It is. There's
Yep.
the license agreement has an exhibit A1 at the end of it, which is a place for them to be able to list what their existing assets and IP is.
Yep. So John, I have a question. Was your concern that we're having set working groups and not just ad hoc? I mean, would you prefer that we just have ad hoc working groups to handle features or requests or issues as they come up? John, you're on mute.
There you are. I couldn't find the unmutey thing. I don't believe that we need an established working group to act as a filter. Michael's ideas box, we used to call them suggestion boxes, and they were outside the office, and you dropped either a signed or anonymous note in. You know, you could drop in something like, I suggest we get rid of the CEO, or the cleaning service is not very good because the scuff marks are still under my desk. We used to have some real doozies. But in this day and age, the digital suggestion box, of course, you put a drop box on the website. All ideas are welcome, signed or unsigned, originated or not originated. And a working group as a permanent fixture or feature, I believe would end up causing us some degree of we will look and feel cumbersome, and it will result in the scenario I painted some moments ago, but I would see it happening between the parties of the board, the parties of the management, the parties of the working group, whereas an ad hoc that is briefed by the board or by the steering committee, most likely, to go forth and examine these. In other words, the steering committee interviews the people who would be impacted by their work effort, their resource requirement, or dollars. All this adds up, and then they send it back and go, steering committee says, as I said before, 7 of them ain't gonna fly. Here's the 4 that fly, and here's the issues that go with them. Mr. Board Member, you decide if you want to blow $773,000 in the next quarter.
So, John, just to be clear, are you saying that if a user puts in a new suggestion idea, that you believe it should go directly to the steering committee, and then the steering committee pushes it to an ad hoc work group?
No, I'm not, Michael. All suggestions should first of all go to the company. In other words, the people who are running it, because most of those suggestions, some of those suggestions, maybe none, but a portion, won't make it out of the company's own offices, because the program guy will just talk to Jimmy and go, "You kidding me? Do you know what that involves?"
No, I agree with you completely. And actually, that's exactly how we have it, is that right now, if the ops guy has an idea and he puts in the idea, the governance person for that company has the ability to go, yeah, this is a reasonable idea that should be looked at by the operations working group. And if the company's governance body says, yeah, that sounds like something that we can stand behind, Jimmy's good idea, then the operations working group has that as an issue that is sitting in their queue of ideas that they can view with the other queued ideas, and they can merge them together into things that are called issues. And ideas are simply, one element of what an issue is. And part of the working group is to be able to bring together each of those different ideas in a way that can be presented to the steering committee for the steering committee to be able to evaluate and say, look, there's really something here and we can put a budget to this, this working group can now begin the efforts of doing this, or this idea doesn't have merit that we can put our budget dollars behind at this point, but we're going to table it until such and such a time. But I really wanted to try to make it so that the steering committee was not burdened with rubbish ideas, and that the filtering process of the company can solve the Jimmy just trying to be able to get a $5 referral fee for filling in the box and putting his suggestion in the box, and the real ideas that are ones where their company goes, yeah, this would make the whole system better. But again, if I put a structure in here, John, and do this from the very beginning, it makes it so that when I sign up a new person, I can put them into a working group, and when the working group gets issues, they get notifications. But if I try to do it ad hoc, now I got to figure out who am I going to pull from which DFMs to go into which ad hoc working group, and how do I get them there? So the whole idea was to systemically identify that when I sign somebody up new, they're part of a working group, they're part of modules that they have to be involved in to do their work. And if they come up with an idea that's in those modules, then their ownership gets to see it. Then the module working group gets to see it. If the company owner says, yeah, that looks right, then the working group can still kick it back down, or they can bring it up and merge it with other ideas to the steering committee.
Now I'm going to, and this is my last response on the subject, because at the end of the day, it's not my Lego, as it were. But I will say this. I am reminded by the statements surrounding this part of our structure of the times when I used to go to Soviet Russia, and at the time it still was Soviet Russia. And I used to go there because I was actually doing things in Soviet Russia. Two, I was persona grata in Soviet Russia because I don't know, they liked me, whatever the hell.
Everybody likes you, John.
You're very likable.
No. No, sir, I am never that misguided. I can count those people, and I have fingers enough for all of them. The reality is that I also used Russia because I was working in Yemen. At the time, it was the People's Democratic Republic of the Yemen, and the only way to get there was on Aeroflot from Moscow with Cuban soldiers, and it was an interesting phenomena. But my point is, whenever you came off the plane, the first thing you were given was, and it was reminiscent really of Orwell's 1984, Animal Farm, and a touch of Aldous Huxley and The Brave New World, and myriad other publications that have reflected Sovietization. Because what you got was basically, it said, in the 7-year plan, production capacity has increased by 34%. Over 700 comrades have contributed significant input to the 7th meeting of the 13th part of the Soviet of Uzbekistan, whose glorious leader, John Greaves, is once again celebrating his 79th birthday for the 36th year, and he's still alive. And it's rejoicing we are that the farmers and the workers and the laborers and the producers are once again driving and striving towards a coherent Soviet future. Really? You gave me one last month when I was here, and it said you were 92% ahead of target. Now you're 73% ahead of target, and you're still rejoicing. Wait till I get the one at the end of the 5 years of the 7-year plan that says, and now with our new 7-year plan in place, that's it. I'm done.
I think there's one other point to add to what you're describing here, John, and it's something that Denise and I have had some lengthy conversation about, which is the fact that ultimately we want to be able to put six participating DFM members on the steering committee. And in order for them to be on the steering committee, we need some history that identifies that these people have been participating in the working groups and that they've been part of the discussion around being able to solve the issues that come up. and that those become their qualifications for wanting to be part of the steering committee.
There you go. Now I've got it. So have you. That is the Stairway to Heaven model, not the Soviet model that I was listening to some moments ago.
That was a great history lesson though, John. Thank you.
Yeah, really
I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Well, we did say prior, we do have, in fact, a vote that we have the criteria to join the steering committee is a plus 70% voting record. So I think that we have consensus on that. But John, just a point here. We have already stood up the utilization working group at a previous steering committee, one of our first. And that was really, the utilization is both to keep, classic operations in IT. We've had some discussions because we had some, I think, definitional differences here, but in any event, there's supposed to.
I'm right with you, Denise, and I know that, and I would actually have referred that as the performance working group, for their very nature is, and the reason they were set up is, yes, we need a budgie on the shoulder looking at and making sure it squawks when the numbers don't add and the workflow doesn't run and so on and so forth.
So, John, this is exactly why we're sitting at this point on this bullet point on Denise's discussion on the agenda, is the fact that there's a decision to be made here. And the decision is the fact that initially we set up a working group that is representative of two different modules in the system. And ultimately, the way that new issues are going to come up is they're going to be created by either the steering committee for a working group to be able to use as an idea, or somebody who is a user of one of the modules who has an idea that goes into that working group for discussion. And having a working group that is aligned with each module of the system makes it so that I can facilitate each idea going to that modular group of other people that are familiar with those issues to be able to address them. Whereas if I don't have them, it's problematic to identify which people are now going to be associated with which issues that are pushed into which working group. And I don't even know how to begin to build that. I mean, I'd have to do it as literally a one-off of standing up a working group and then going through the list of all users that could potentially be a participant and then invite them to that working group, as opposed to them being a participant of the working group that then gets to be able to see new issues as they're created.
So I think there's an action here for the purposes of time, because Keith is going to be joining us in 5 minutes. There is an action to more clearly define the working group names, like performance versus utilization, and product versus ops, because I think it's confusing, and more clearly define those names and come back to the steering committee with those, including how the members would be assigned to those.
Unless anybody else has any additional opinions they want to add to it beforehand, we can continue to have the discussion with the tech side about how to make sure that we have the accountability for the working group voting and working group participation, so that we can facilitate the other missions that we had as far as being able to upgrade people to the steering committee. But I think the place that we really landed at this morning in the pre-call was that we have a working group in place because we needed a working group to be able to discuss issues. But creating a second working group that is a hodgepodge of information may not be the best approach for us. And it took us some time to get there, but it might make more sense to be able to, at this point, stand up the working group associated with each module and realize that we have a university or a universal or a utility working group for now, because of the fact that we need to be able to have a place where these issues and ideas can be discussed until such time as the full integration of the working group and ideas and issues in the system is available for our soon-to-be users to be able to work on.
Yes, and yes, and yes. So I would not myself stand up. I would stand them up as a title. I would not populate them. So I'd have a frame, a structure, the names, but there's no parties to inhabit. In fact, again, if I may, there was an inaugural standards meeting of an IEEE proposed committee last week, whose scope had been approved by IEEE. It had been widely publicized and broadcast. It has 14 working groups within it, and 17 people turned up to the meeting from across the world. So guess what?
Probably didn't fill 14 working groups.
They just look stupid,
Yeah.
right? So they simply are not, it's not going to fly. I'm part of the group that's going to gently tell them to go away. But you may be interested to know, Linda Goetz, that the instigator of this phantom standards group is your man, Yu Yuan, playing the China card.
you know that's not my man, and thankfully to your
Yes.
suggestion not to interact with him, I did not have any type of
Good.
engagement, but not surprising.
Yeah, seriously, Michael, Denise, by all means put it up. By all means it should be in the company manual, as it were. By all means it should be a recognized part of our engine. But let's not be rushing out to go, oh, and the marketing working group is now chaired by Freddie Smith, and it's got Mary and Sue Ellen and Jimmy Bob on it, and we're good to go. No.
John, you're really on point. If we can get agreement of the fact that it makes sense for there to be a working group for each module of the system, then I can facilitate that in the development side of being able to create the places for those users and issues to be able to go through. And if I don't get that consensus on this, then I really have to change direction of what I have the developers working on at the moment. And I think this has got some really good thought in it.
So moved.
Second?
Yeah, I second that we go ahead and designate based on the internal subsets of the company, because as things come in, if you already have individuals allocated to, they would be participating in X group, then you can send out to that grouping and it's already built into the back end of the system. I mean, I think that's, building it in advance of the need is a very appropriate step. But I agree to John's point entirely. Like, there's no point.
Don't populate it yet. Yeah,
right,
we're all there. We
It's
don't
going to be the
need to have
same
all
5
these
people
there, but
Yeah.
it's the reason why we added this to the agenda, was to try to get to this point of a recognition of, do we want to create something else that is now a marketing and sales group, and we're going to have a grouping that is for IT and ops and a grouping that is for marketing and sales, and eventually we're going to have to disband both of them and make 5 new working groups. There's no reason to do this. It makes better sense to have foresight here and to convey to the steering committee that, let's zoom out for a second and take a look at what a month from now looks like and see if you guys see the same thing as we do. And it sounds like you did.
Okay, so what I've got recorded is that we do have broad agreement for working group alignment per module, but I also have captured an action for myself to create a framework that includes the name, broad R&R roles and responsibilities, and module alignment for discussion. Does that sound appropriate?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Brilliant. All right, we've got Keith in the waiting room. Let me go back to the agenda. So this was, all right, so we are actually on point now to have
Hey, look at us.
document review. So we're going to look at the MOU changes. I'll hold until we get Keith so I can just explain this once. But good discussion, guys. And let me bring on Mr. Lutz. Keith, good afternoon. Are you there, Keith?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, I can hear you now. How are you?
All right.
Thank you so much for joining.
Hey, Keith, how are you, buddy?
Hey, I'm here. I just had lunch.
Good. Not nap time for you then, is it?
No, that was before the originally scheduled call.
We appreciate your flexibility today. Unfortunately, the other attorney that we were expecting to get some documents from was a little bit tardy in being able to get them over to us and sent us a message this morning saying that they were busy, and we told them that that wasn't a good excuse. So we did get them all back, and I'm glad you were able to be flexible in your schedule. So I appreciate that. And in the interest of time, I'm going to let Denise do her thing.
Okie doke. Yes. Hey, Keith. So we do have a call at 3. Timing is perfect with our first customer. So things are trending very, very positively. We are having the momentum that we definitely wanted. So I have now sharing the MOU. Everyone has seen this. Everyone has previously agreed to this. There's one change, and this is from this, in fact, same customer, and that they have asked that we add this language here. Does not imply a financial commitment to transactions. So I am asking if everyone is comfortable with this change. We don't have to add it.
So, and just to be clear, this was in a discussion as their very first chance to be able to have a comment after reading the MOU, and they felt like they had to have something to say. And this was the comment of the fact that in most MOUs that they've done before, it says that they're not agreeing for any payment for this from this agreement. And I told him that we would take it under advisement and that I would bring it to the steering committee, and that's where we are at the moment.
It makes a lot of sense to me to add it. It doesn't seem like there's any reason why it would be prohibitive or in any way conflicting with the purpose of the document.
So is that a motion to accept the change?
Yeah, and I agree, because I mean, we state before that this is non-binding.
Yeah.
I think it just further details that.
Yeah, motion to accept.
Second.
Any nays?
Good.
Okay, then that one is.
That's the easiest one of everything we had to do
That
for
one
this
was
whole
easy.
thing. So that's
Yes,
piece of cake.
agreed. Okay, and I will make that both documents, the DFM and the contributing member. Just know
Thank you.
that will take place. Okay, then the next thing we're going to talk about is the terms and conditions and privacy policies. Those were sent prior. I know it was very short notice, guys, and again, I sent it very quickly after I received it. So.
And just for clarity, privacy policy is not required for this discussion. We actually have reviewed this privacy policy previously, and it is connected to the website, but there was a discussion in a previous meeting about the fact that the privacy policy should include an additional term that was related to social media content, but that edit was actually made inside of the term of use. So we do not have any changes to review in the privacy policy. If we can stick with the terms and conditions, I think that's the one that hasn't been reviewed. So we have that and the license agreement that are the 2 documents that I think are pressing.
Yeah, okay, let me go ahead and share the.
And I'm happy to talk about the privacy policy. Nothing's changed in it since June 14th when we agreed to it. So.
Okay, so here is the terms of use. What has been added to this document is the antitrust language. Keith, this was antitrust language that actually came over from you, from I think it was the WPC. So we've just reused that with some very minor changes, and the NDA. So we sort of took your guidance and combined these into one document. I'll just remind everyone that this is not a document they're going to see. We'll have it, but the intent is that this will be a click wrap. They'll see a terms and conditions. They'll see a privacy policy when they sign in. They click it, agree, click it, agree. If you need to see it, then they'll see this document. It's just like anything that we use, right? In most websites, you have that option.
Okay, I guess I'm just confused on now. This is the first time I've seen this whole set of documents, and this is not where the antitrust policy should go, because as I read this document, this is the document that says, oh, this is the DFMDC document for us to provide data processing services to someone, period. That has nothing to do with the antitrust policy.
So,
Antitrust policy should be in one of the governance documents, or it should at least be referenced in one of the governance documents, not the DFMDC providing computing services document.
okay. We have that antitrust. So let me go to the particular language. We have it as a separate document. So what we can do, Keith, is just pull it out and make it a separate and just reference to it in the membership agreement. That's not at all a problem.
That's correct. That's where it should be based on now that I've seen this set. It should be referenced, it in the IPR policy should be referenced in the membership agreements.
Okay, let me pull up the antitrust policy then, just so everyone has that. So you can look just at that. Give me
So
just,
I'm sorry, I'm not clear on where you're suggesting that it should reside as the whole policy, Keith. Can you repeat that part of it for me?
The policy is a standalone policy document all by itself.
Okay. So
And the membership agreement just says, I agree to that thing.
okay. So Denise, do you have that as the original document where it was freestanding?
I do. Let me get it. And you will recognize it quite a bit.
Yes. Yeah, because we actually reviewed this in our last meeting independently as being and what our comment was that, and Keith, no offense, just that what Keith has stated previously was that we should include that antitrust in the terms and conditions. So that's why it was sent over to the other attorney, and this is where they put it, is right before the miscellaneous clause. So
And then I didn't know what the terms and conditions agreement was.
you didn't, sir, and I'm not faulting you in any way. I'm
No.
the nature of how it comes together. So we can certainly move it and put it so that it's referenced in the license agreement.
And you should have, and this might be my fault, you should have version 9 that was sent to the term for the terms and conditions in the document that I sent to you. So version 9 of the T's and C's includes this antitrust language that I am sharing right now. It's exact same language. So what we did, Keith, based on some prior conversations, was just included this language into the T's and C's, really just to simplify things, right? Now, it can also be a standalone, right? So we can have it as a standalone doc that we refer out to, and also in the T's and C's, but it's the same language.
No. This doesn't have anything to do with the T's and C's.
Okay.
The T's and C's is DFMDC providing computing services. Period, to anybody that wants computing services. Doesn't have anything to do with the governance.
Okay, so you're
The membership agreements are governance documents. If I refuse to be involved in the governance at all, but I want to use the services, this is the agreement I will sign, is the T's and C's.
Okay.
As I see all these pieces come together, right?
Okay, that's fine. So again, what you're seeing now is the antitrust language that's reflected in version 9 of the T's and C's. We can pull it out of the T's and C's. That's not a problem. And then just have this as a standalone document and reference out to it in the member agreement. I think that's what you're saying.
Yes.
Okay.
And we only received version 8, Denise.
That is my fault. My apologies, guys. I was unfortunately
Rushing.
trying to get these out really, really quickly.
I mean, it's in version 8, so.
Yeah. I won't do it now, but I'll send this updated version to you. I did have it, guys. That's my, I'm sorry. That was my fault.
So Denise, I also noticed on the terms of conditions in the section 11 of relationship, the last sentence that's in there is stricken through.
Are you looking at version 8 or version 9?
I printed out the one that you sent over to me in the email. So if
That's version 8.
Okay. Let me send this to you because I sent it to you guys. I just grabbed the wrong one. All right, so this is version 9, and this is what we should be looking at. There are some changes, but not, it's essentially the same. So while you're waiting to get that, going back then to the antitrust, regardless, it sounds like the antitrust should come out of version 8 or version 9, and it should be a standalone document, which is fine, and we refer out to this document in the member agreement, which we can do. And Keith, again, you're going to recognize this
Oh yeah, because I wrote it.
because you wrote it. Now, there was very minor changes from what you wrote, and that is that we took some pricing language out of it just to be extra cautious. And I can get that version and that language specifically if you need that.
No, that's fine.
So the action then is to remove it from the T's and C's version 9, yeah?
And it goes in one of the membership agreements, basically in the sentence that says, I agree to the bylaws and to the antitrust policy.
Okay,
And Denise, I did pull up version 9, and it also does have on page 14, section 11 under relationship, the last sentence is stricken through on the document. And
okay, let me, so I think we're done with the antitrust policy then. I know what I need to do on that. So no other changes, Keith, on this antitrust policy?
Oh, it basically looks fine.
Okay, I knew you.
You've got the cost stuff in, you got the price fixing, you've got all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the stuff that matters.
Okay. Got it. All right, so then we will, anyone have any concerns, issues, comments on this then with the antitrust policy? Because I'd like to, if possible, then have a vote.
but my only comment on it is the license agreement reference of where we want to be able to put that in. I just don't want to miss where we're going to insert that into the license agreement. Do you have?
You don't go, no, it doesn't go into the license agreement. It goes into a membership agreement. Like if you look at the DFM membership agreement,
Mhm.
Right.
and somewhere in here you go.
Yeah, right after the recital for F, it says this DFM member agreement contains herein incorporated by reference, corporate bylaws.
Well, no, okay. So if you look at DFM member responsibilities, right, on page 2, it says, I hereby agree to be bound by the bylaws, policies, comma, including the antitrust policy, da 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 da. Okay. Literally, it's that simple to add it in.
Okay, I see exactly where you're at.
Sorry,
Denise,
that's what I was trying to get to, is I wanted to get us to that spot and make sure we didn't miss that line.
could you slide the frame up, Denise, so I could see the photo?
Yeah, just give me 2 seconds. I'm making
Sure.
that. Okay. All right, so this is the antitrust policy. And then the changes that I just made are on the, I'm going to stop sharing this for a second so everyone can see the DFM member responsibilities. So see where I've put it. Okay, so I've added it right here, including the antitrust policies right there.
Antitrust policy should be a singular, and they should be capital A, capital P.
Got it. Oops. So now we have it referred to in the member agreement, and I'll make the same changes in the contributing member agreement. And then we also have an antitrust policy itself that we can include. Do we include that in the bylaws, or where does it actually get included?
It doesn't get included anywhere. It's a freestanding document all by itself.
Okay. Okay. All right, that makes sense.
Keith, is that something to reference from the website so people can see what the antitrust is from there, or is it visible anyplace?
No, I mean, all of this, like I said, the membership agreements, the bylaws, all of that stuff should be completely on the website.
Okay.
This is the discussion we've had for transparency.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Everything. It's just one of those, the internal operating policies of the working group. No, that shouldn't be on the website, right?
Yep.
But all of these sorts of documents, because they're going to agree to it, they got to see it.
So the question that we had, or that's come up, is you did say that it should be available, but it also didn't have to be anonymously available, right? So that they could have to go to a place to be able to put in their name and email address and download the documents.
Yeah, that's fine. Nobody cares.
Yeah, we just don't want to. I think that's the right way to go about it, but I hear what you're saying.
Okay, all right, that's great. So I'll make those changes to the contributing member agreement just as you see them here. We've got the antitrust policy. We've got that.
Obviously, I have a whole lot more questions about the T's and C's.
All right, let me go back to the T's and C's.
And that's before we get into the license agreement, which is a whole nother ball of wax.
All right, so now I'm going to share the correct version of the T's and C's, which is version 9. All right, sharing that.
So, what are the features? I go to section 5, license to customer. What are the features that are not available until a licensing agreement is executed?
So you're saying what are the features that are not available?
Yeah,
Yes.
not all features will be available until
They will not be able to share and anonymize their transactions, and they will not be able to receive anonymized transactions from other shipments,
so really
from
no.
other providers.
Then what's this, what agreement do they have to sign to even, but isn't that what the actual service is providing?
So we've, just to be clear, because you weren't on the beginning of this call, we've added this contributing member capability where individual companies can now come to the website and say, hey, we're a contributing member to this DFM space, and they can register and they can be a customer of ours where they have no tangible fees that are due, but they are there to be able to have a customer relationship with us.
But okay, I guess the whole basic purpose of the service, right, is to do the extra stuff in Claim 6.
Yes, sir.
Which is all the anonymized stuff that you're going to do.
The specialty of the service is to be able to create interoperability between the digital freight matching companies. The very first product offering that we're offering them is the ability to cleanse capacity and phantom loads from their marketplace when they have downloaded our software. But before they download our software, they can now come in and become a contributing member. And if invited, they can be a participant in the working groups that are discussing the things that are related to the challenges in this industry.
Right.
So I guess the issue is what are the features that they can see? Is that still where we're at, or have we?
Well, I think
there's a couple of concerns here. I'm worried about, tying issues. I'm also worried about if you are doing, and this gets really messy, if you are doing the piece that the extra part that steps 6, their position should be that I am therefore licensed to practice all of the claims above it. And therefore, I don't need an additional license if I'm running all of my constructs through you, i.e. all my transactions are going through you. I don't need an additional license because I have now been licensed to do claim 6 and therefore also everything above it. The only time they would need an additional license would be for any transactions that don't go through the service.
So if a DFM were truly doing digital freight matching where they had a device and were doing data capture and instant messaging, and those were in a closed loop environment, and those were 6 separate claims that were not claim 6, claim 12, claim 21, or claim 24, but they were signing up to be able to have that capacity cleaned by utilizing claims 6, 12, 21, and 24. And the other claims, they're still truly doing what those claims are. They're doing signature capture on a mobile device in a digital freight matching environment. They're doing.
I got to look up. I'm looking up the dependency chain for 6.
Sure. Yeah, it actually splits both ways. There's
Right.
one that goes.
Okay. They will be for any of the transactions that go through the system. They will also be licensed to claim 1.
That's correct. With claim 6.
Correct.
But not with claim 12.
No, they don't get claim 3. They don't get claim 4.
That's correct. That's why I'm saying there's isolations that are around this with the way that the claims are sequenced to each other. And if you read all 37 claims, you'll see that it splits it both ways. So it covers it every way possible is what's intended to have taken place.
But part of what I'm saying is they're going to get a license to claim 6, arguably. And that means they're also going to get a license to claim 1 for those transactions.
That's correct.
Okay.
That is correct. Yes, I agree with that completely.
And then what is being not available that they need a license agreement for?
Well, at that point, they would have already gotten the license agreement, right? I mean, at
No,
the point that they...
No. I mean, that's part of why I'm lost in some of these pieces, right? That's why I'm also concerned about tying.
If you look, and I'm just going to try to help you get to the point because I got a map that I have here. So if you look at claim 12,
right,
you'll see that claim 12 is related to a commercially independent marketplace that's identified in claim 2. And it supposes in claim 12 that you also have claim 11, claim 10.
Yes, of course.
Claim 9, 8, and 2.
Yes.
But the other direction of claim 6, claim 6 is only really tied to claim 2 and claim 1. Or really to claim 1.
It's only tied only to claim 1, right.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you go to the second example of this where you have the claim 21 and claim 26, they split the same way. Where one, they're daisy chained together, where it includes everything before it, and the other, it is directly claimed to just claim 15.
Yeah.
So if somebody were doing claim 20 or somebody were doing claim 18, they would not be included in the license that they got for claim 21.
Correct.
So that's the reason for generating the other license agreement that they're getting the license for.
Okay. That's all fine. But I'm also concerned about the requirement here that you are contemplating doing an execution of a license agreement, because now all of a sudden I'm starting to do it. The word tying shows up again in my head. They should be able to use your service and then get the license to 6 and 1, and whether they, I use that or whatever, the 20 and whatever that one is, right? 20 and 15 or whatever it is. 21 and 15. They should be able to get that. The fact that they don't have a license to the other ones shouldn't be part of your services agreement and shouldn't be tied into it. That's a separate license agreement that they need to come up with, not to your common utility service, because that's not needed to use the common utility service.
Okay, but and I'll just explain the thought behind it and how we've tried to handle this, is that the claims as defined of claims 6, 12, 21, 26 that are associated here with this company, the other reciprocal claims are truly allocated and defined to the other company, Block Know-How. And there has been a license agreement that is written between Block Know-How and DFM Data Corp that enables DFM Data Corp to be able to offer that license to the other claims that DFM Data Corp doesn't currently have a license to.
Right.
So I thought the point of where we were with this was to be able
where is that that's not a feature of the service, right?
So it's a feature of the relationship with DFM Data Corp, because if somebody doesn't want to cleanse the data with DFM Data Corp and that's not something that is of value to them, then Block Know-How really has the right to be able to go to them and say, hey, guess what? You're
right. I understand
these
that,
claims.
but that's not a feature of the service. Claim 3 is not a feature of the service that they're being excluded from using. Or whatever, some other claim, right? The service is really just 6, 12, 21, and whatever. So
That's
there's
correct.
they're not having something that's not available to them. They have other claims that are not available to them, but that's not a feature of the service.
Okay. I mean, I can go down this channel here because the data that we get is going to be anonymized data that's now in a new data lake, and they're not going to have full access to that capability in the system until we have what that product offering is going to be, because we don't have the data for it right now.
So,
but we will have a new aggregate of a new data set that is enormous, that has incredible value to it, to this industry. And slicing and dicing that data is a component of what they do have and will have licensed to be able to have access to, but it's not part of what they have right now.
that's not part of the intent of the utility. When the utility starts providing that as a service, then, you know, that's another fee or whatever, or something like that. But it's something that will be made available to everyone as well. And then that license, that will then be inherently licensed as well under first sale, et cetera, right?
Yep.
So then you have the other ones that they still aren't there, you're not providing a service for. Those are what the other license agreement's for. I don't want those tied together. I don't want this saying, this is, you will get the features that we provide. Boom, period. You will understand that there are also other patent related rights that are not necessarily included in the services that you may need to operate on. That's what the license agreement is for. That's the way I would sort of word this section here. Not, you're not going to get access to that. You're going to get access to what the service will provide, but the service doesn't provide everything in case you're doing other things, right? If you understand what I'm trying to say. If you're doing claim 3, you're not going to get that cleansed to the service. That you have to go get the license for.
So, but that's a little bit of what we're trying to say, is the fact that there's, because of the fact, and you're the IP attorney, so I'm not trying to be able to step on your toes in any way. You're the expert here. But my understanding is that when the patent rights can be used to use, make, or sell. Mm-hmm. And the license that we're offering for claim 6, 12, 21, and 24 is a use license. The license that we're offering for the other claims for other folks to be able to do is likely a make and sell
and use. They have to use it because this is all services stuff. So
correct. So they've made it, they're selling it, and they're using it themselves, and we have to be able to authenticate that for them so that they have that as a risk-free going forward from here. And
absolutely.
You say it's not part of the service, but it kind of is. It's really the way that the sales team is intending to be able to go in and say, look, we can solve this whole problem. We know the guy that created this. He came up with a really proactive way to do this. And just if you agree to this one thing here and start transacting and work with us on doing the cleaning of the transactions for the whole marketplace, then the other claims you already have license to. We'll write a license agreement that allows you to be able to do those things that you're continuing to do. And you don't have a concern of this other company that owns that rights coming to you looking for additional license fees. You can show them this license and it is your license.
And so the way you said, and the way I've approached this is, yes, you can use our anonymized data cleansing, data matching service. That's not the end of the world in your business. That the rest of it may be over here. You can use these all day long. You are then at risk potentially for this other stuff that we're offering a license to over here.
So that's the language that we're trying to be able to get clear here, Keith, because I hear exactly what you're saying. And
it needs to be phrased as, you're going to get everything that we get. That may not be all you need to operate your business. Your business may need other pieces that you have to go get a license from over here. You're going to get a license to everything that we do, but that may not be your entire business. That's sort of the phraseology I would be using. Not, we're going to withhold stuff. No, we're going to give you everything that we can give you, but that's not enough for you to run a business.
So, but I think the point of what we're trying to get to is to be able to tell them that we're trying to give them everything that they need to run their business.
No,
And
you can't tie the two things together.
Okay, so that again, I'm trying to be able to
You can
hear what my
warn that
sales
you can,
and marketing guys are
you
saying.
can warn them that says, there's more stuff you're going to need. Oh, here's the agreement for that. But that doesn't, you shouldn't be putting in the, we're not giving you everything in the use agreement here. Because
Keith, I have to tell you that this makes me very happy. This is a better way to do this than it is the way that we were trying to do it initially.
Okay.
And I was trying to do it the other way because that's what my sales and marketing team expressed as a desire to be able to present this to the customer. But if from an antitrust perspective,
right,
the statement is the fact that we need to be able to provide this as, hey, look, this is what we can license because what we have rights to, and these are the other things that you may need to be able to get, and we can help introduce you to that. Then that's I'm fine with that, and I don't know where everybody else stands on it, but I don't have an issue with which way that's phrased. We were trying to do it in the easiest way with the least number of documents.
Oh,
right.
what I'm
but
hearing
you
is
already have the other document. It's called the license agreement.
right. Yeah, I'm hearing this document is in regard to the 4 claims that cleanse the data, and any additional licensing needs to happen in a totally separate space because it doesn't relate directly to the services of DFM Data Corp. Is that correct?
That are being provided as a utility service to the whole world, yes.
Okay.
As of today, I mean, as of today. Right?
Yeah, as of today, right?
Yeah.
And you decide you wanted to add claim 7, right, or whatever it is, right? You want to add the services in another claim, fine, then that gets rolled up in there and they just, whatever, right?
So I changed that language to say you will receive access to the anonymized data services provided. However, other features may be available should you have the rights to other licenses.
I would be actually,
It's not should they have the rights, should they have the need.
It's you may need other rights to operate your business.
Okay. To operate your business.
Or some kind of phraseology like that, right?
These features, we can wordsmith it later, but these features may be available should you secure the rights to other licenses in other agreements?
No. We will give you what you have. You may need other stuff to do your business. You have to go sign a different license agreement for that, period.
Okay. Got it. Okay.
Does this cover co-brokering if we move that far?
That's in the other agreement, right?
Well, it isn't
Yes.
initially. It's just purging initially. But if we move to co-brokering, does that mean?
So because of the fact that claim
Additional
6
claims.
reaches back and grabs claim 1, which is actually where the matching takes place, if it's matching with cleansing, it covers claim 1 and the matching and co-brokering. If it's,
You're not actually doing the brokering. You're providing the data. They're doing
that's
the brokering.
correct. They're doing the brokering. We are not.
So this doesn't need brokering stuff in it because you're not doing it. You're just doing data.
Correct, but they are brokers. And what we're describing here is the fact that we can serve as a liaison between a broker and a broker in a co-brokered transaction. And that's the reason why that's in this license agreement.
Okay. I think that's cleaner.
Let's go to next to section 6.
I'm sorry, Keith, what was that?
Section 6 of the use of the terms.
Mm-hmm. Section 6?
Section 6.
Okay.
Next one. This data that you're going to be anonymizing, it's data, it's not content. And so therefore, there's no copyright involved anywhere. It's data. Data is not copyrightable. So everything you're going to be working with is called confidential trade secret data. Like I said, you're not going to be able to, this is stuff that you're not going to public for form. You're going to reproduce it, but that's just because it's data you have to reproduce in the processing steps. It's not copyrightable content.
Okay, so is it merely replacing the word content with data?
Yeah, but half this thing relates to copyright rights that have nothing to do with data. You know, you don't translate, you don't publish, you don't adapt, you don't publicly perform.
So let me just, Keith, let me just give you a quick background of why that may be there. And the discussions that I've had with them is in my pre-sales, when we are evaluating somebody that we've read an article about that says that they are doing digital freight matching, we will go to their social media platforms and identify where they describe themselves, where they have their about us. And we copy that information and put it into our system for our people to be able to reference for their profile. And what he was referring to, I believe, was that content that we are collecting from social media sites and being able to profile that company with as being what they're licensing to us. They're giving us the rights to be able to say, okay, you can go to my public data information and utilize it to be able to collect my profile data. And that was the purpose of this. So we actually have we pull in the YouTube channel and the Instagram account and the Facebook account and the LinkedIn account. And
why does the service? Okay, no, let's go back. Why does the service need that? To provide a service that matches those types of providers to other providers that are of similar or corresponding business equivalences. We have to be able to categorize them. We need to be able to know our customer. No, the service says this is the kind of stuff we can do. If you're one of those, it works. Well, that's not part of the service. That's the conditions of this. This is the way the tool works. This is how the tool works. This is what the tool will work on. If you're one of those, absolutely fine. But that's not a condition of the license to the service. I understand that, but my thought as I read this, and again, yeah, I understand. I understand. I thought that this was them licensing it to us, and it was just us getting some coverage of any potential movement of their information, and that's. Yeah, if this was intended to cover the data, that's not what it's going to do, because it's not relevant to that, because data is not copyright. And that other stuff, that shouldn't be part of what this, that's not the service's issue either. The service is supposed to take in raw data and provide raw data out, and it doesn't care what the guy's YouTube channel says. That's not a service function either. That's a DFMDC marketing function. That's not a service function.
Okay. I understand what you're saying. So the transactional data that we require from the DFMs to make this viable, that is the service function. I understand that. So do we have to say license to the company? Is it okay to just make those references? Content refers to, social media content used for DFM-DC marketing purposes, and data refers to DFM transactional data?
If you want to separate them out, yeah, but
does that make
ultimately,
sense?
If you want to give the marketing data, you put in a section that says we're going to use you for marketing stuff. But if it's the transactional data, somewhere in here you need to say we're going to be providing these data crunching services. That's kind of missing in here, but
okay.
Part of it is I was looking at in a normal SaaS agreement where you're a software service provider. It's I'm going to provide you this computing service. and I'm going to be up 98% of the time. And if I'm not, I owe you money and that sort of stuff, right? That's a normal SaaS. That's what I'm expecting this to look like. Hi, I'm going to provide you this computing service of this data matching, which happens to be claim 6. And that's what I'm going to be providing.
Okay.
That's what I was expecting to see here. And a lot of this is correct for that, right? But a couple of these key pieces are like not related to, hi, I'm providing you computing services. Because I'm just more concerned about it than normal because you're wanting to be a utility. And so therefore, the less non-utilitarian necessary functions, the fewer of those you have, the better. Yeah, I agree. You should be able to have their name, use their name, at least their name, maybe their trademark, to say, and these are the people using our services. These are the people using the utility. You get 4 more of these, and now all of a sudden we're going to have everybody, and it's going to be even better, right? You should have the rights to do some of that, but that's not YouTube channel stuff. That's just these are the customers of the service and people you're going to be combining data with.
Is there some specific language that you think we should remove from this section, Keith?
I honestly, I'd remove the whole section.
Keith, you said remove the whole.
Somehow, but then you somehow need to end up with a section that says, I'm providing you these computing services.
So, and just to be clear, what you're looking at section 6.
Yes.
So section 6 is them licensing to us, not what we're licensing to them.
And why do they need to license you any copyrightable content if you're providing a data crunching service?
Because we have a profile of that company on our website that other DFMs can see and that other shippers and carriers can see. And we're wanting to be able to promote them so that they can get new business. So we need to have access to be able to promote them.
If you're going to put it in, put that sorts of descriptions around why this is here, not just some blanket content license that has that's just in a vacuum.
That's fine. I mean, and I'm happy to be able to amend it as needed for the description of the service, but part of the service is the fact that as a utility, we're wanting the market segment of DFMs to be able to grow, and for it to grow, we are allocating part of our income to be able to market and sell. But to do that, we need to have rights to be able to put their logos up and say that we're trying to drive business to them.
Right, but logos as not all of this. So this isn't logos. This is copyrightable content like the stuff off their YouTube channel. That you don't need to market them. Market that they're one of your providers, one of your members, one of your users rather.
So, and just to be clear, we're not just marketing that they're one of our users, we're marketing their services to other new customers and helping them to grow.
Not the function of the utility. Not the function of the utility. Function of the utility is provide services. Of the utility. No, it's so you're going to say, I'm using this company and this is the sort of stuff they do that, and I'm processing their data.
Keith, I'm just sharing with you the fact that part of the objective of the company as we approach these companies is the fact that they are currently only penetrating 1.5% of this marketplace. And in order for this whole digital industry to be able to become more mainstream, there would need to be a central marketing effort of being able to showcase the differences between the digital freight matching companies that are providing these services. And they change regularly, and they're in publications and in white papers and in their website and in blog articles. And we're going to want to pull that content from all of those places and have them so that people can come to our DFM Data Corp utility and identify all of those players that are currently registered with DFM Data Corp. And this is about those companies and all their current materials.
Okay, so it is a I have no problem with you I have no problem with you In fact, I know you want to identify all the companies. The next step is a click link from them to somewhere else. These are all my customers, and they provide these services. For more details, click here.
Okay, so what if, as part of the service, when someone logs in, there is a page that they can make a custom page that they can fill in with their own materials?
That's
Because
fine.
this is part of the design of the system
You don't put
right
that
now.
in the. You don't put that in the agreement. You put that in a link that they then link to, and now they're outside of what people have to see. Now they have exited. That link takes them out of the utility and into the DFMDC marketing function. Out of the utility function. Utility needs to say, hi, these are the
That's
guys
fine.
I have,
That's
and
fine.
this is the kind of stuff I do. The link clicks you out of the utility world. If you go to, a lot of these people, like even the W Wireless Power, they list certified products. That's fine because those are all certified products. That's a marketing effort, but that's also a certification list. So that's about where you can go on this. You don't, any, hi, this is what I do, link. That's links away from the site, not on the site. So then you move over to the DFMDC marketing world, not the utility world.
While I hear that and get that, it's just we are looking to help these companies do business with each other in a secure, safe place. Yes. On that co-brokering capability. And for that to take place, they're going to need to look at what that company made of their own profile of how they work with other digital freight matching companies that are involved in DFM Data Corp. And it's going to be a unique page that does have their copyrightable information on it of what they're telling our story.
But that's not part of using the utility. That may be a different piece, right?
But I'm telling you, as the person who works with the developers every single day, that is one of the authorized users' roles, to be able to access the module that is for marketing for their company, to be able to create a GUI experience of what others can see that their company does. They can upload videos from their own place. They can upload their description from LinkedIn.
At least put that wrappers around that whole section, rather than just have this blanket copyright license that's completely in no context.
That's fine. I'm happy with that, and I'm glad we had the discussion about it. I think it's an important one to be able to have. This was the piece that they were talking about adding to the privacy policy that instead they put in here.
Yeah, no, that does need a privacy policy, but you just reference a privacy policy.
Yes.
Go see privacy policy. Just like I said, you agree to the antitrust policy. It should be a standalone document.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
That's the end of my comments on that document.
Cool. We got 9 minutes left.
We do. And then we have the customer joining actually on this bridge, in fact.
So we have 8 minutes left.
Yes.
Unless we want to have Keith on the phone to be able to talk to Dex also, but I don't know if we want to do that at this point.
I'm not sure Keith wants to do that.
No, probably not.
No. And then we get into the license agreement, where I got utterly and completely lost in who's doing what and who's granting what, because it looks to me in the quick read I did that it's all confused.
Okay. So the intent of that agreement, and again, I didn't write these, so I don't have any pride of ownership of them, is the fact that the agreement was initially stated that we are going to be working with digital freight matching companies that are brokers, and they're going to be broker A and broker B, and we need to be able to help them to facilitate a brokered load where one of them has a shipper and one of them has a carrier. And for them to be able to know each other and work together, they're going to trust that they know us as being their agent, and they are going to be able to interact in a relationship where they're going to have certain promises to each other that they're going to be able to do business ethically. And we're standing in the middle of that to be able to help them do that. Then we came into our first customers, which were SaaS customers that said, oh, wait, we don't take the broker of record position on this. We're just a technology company. We sell our service as a subscription. And when somebody logs into the subscription, then we get a fee. So they're a SaaS provider. And as a SaaS provider, the business rules make it that a SaaS provider could work with another broker, or a SaaS provider could work with another SaaS provider, or a broker could work with a broker.
So what it sounds like to me right here is there's two things going on. You really would like some of that in the beginning of the terms of use. To say, I'm going to work with these groups, and these are the other users of the service, and you would like some of that as a preamble into the terms of use. This one is more a straight patent license for the rest of the claims you don't get when you use the service. And so it's a little bit, so
That's a good read on your part, Keith.
That some of that you want in the other one.
The first document, yeah, exactly. The first time this was prepared, it was prepared from the perspective of this is probably going to be the agreement from the company that has the 30 rights for them. And we had a fee structure that was associated with that, that was, based off of which claims they made and used and sold, or made or used or sold.
Right. And that's some of that. But once I got into this, once I got into this, the parties are all confused as far as I can tell. Because the only person granting a license should have been DFM-DC. And all of a sudden there's other people's, and there's other, like a SaaS provider owns the rights. No, it doesn't. There's all sorts of, and then the license, there's no license even to a SaaS provider. There's just licenses to brokers. So there's a lot of pieces. This they needed more time to finish. But you want to take some of the top of this, what you said about, trust me, I'm a good guy. I'm only going to let people that you can work with into the system. That stuff needs to be grafted on the front of the other one for everybody to be warmer and fuzzier, right?
On the front of the terms and conditions.
Right. It's like, yeah, these are the people that we're going to let use this. So that you have to trust us that we're only going to use data from the people that are supposed to be there. And you sort of need to have that stuff on the front of the other one. Or this was, I would put that stuff on the front of the other one, because that just makes more sense based on what you just said, right? This one is a whole lot, this is just a whole lot simpler deal than that. Hi, it's a patent license for what you don't have. And you don't.
Can we retitle this that?
I mean, it's.
That was a joke.
Yeah. So, I mean, that whatever, but that architecturally is what I see it would being, right? And we have like 1 minute or 2 minutes, so I probably need to get off, and you guys need to get ready for your next call.
Yep. Appreciate your time, sir. Good
No
feedback.
problem.
Thanks.
Okay. Bye.
Thanks, Keith.
Bye.
Okay, I'm going to stop sharing this, guys. I've made the changes that I could and save these as new versions. So for the purposes of the call with Raj, which will be coming in on this bridge, I don't think we have anything else we need to do for the steering committee other than adjourn it, Michael?
I think that's accurate.
Okay, guys, I know that was painful, but thank you so much. This is how we have to make sausage. So we'll adjourn the steering committee for now, and we will talk next week, if not before.
Unless anybody has comments, I don't want John and Linda to just be kicked off the call. They stayed on for the whole end. They should have a chance to be able to say what they observed or anything quickly.
You're on mute, John.
No, I found the gentleman to be a classic corporate lawyer. My teeth, which were only recently fixed, are now ground back to zero.
No.
I'm done.
It's painful, isn't it?
Yes, sir.